I was alone, in darkness. I didn't know where I was or how I got there. Everything was black, but a blackness so deep and intense it felt almost physical. And I had to fight the urge to collapse, to fall upon the ground and curl myself into the fetal position and shut my eyes. Shut my eyes? Were my eyes even open? I reached up and touched them. Yeah, they were open. And no, I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. Then I reached down and touched the ground, and my hand felt stones, small rocks which had a greasy texture. I moved my hands a little farther, a little further, and found I was now touching a long wooden board, wooden plank. And then it hit me. It was a railway tie. I was standing on a railroad track. Sure enough, I felt around until my hand touched a cold steel rail. I realized I must be in a tunnel or subway, although I couldn't remember how I got there. And frankly, my primary thought was, how do I get out of here? I waited for my eyes to adjust to the intense blackness, but they didn't. I couldn't see anything at all. It was like I was dead. But then, off, in the distance, at the very limit of my vision, I thought I saw a pinprick of white light. I wasn't sure at first if my eyes were playing tricks on me, if I was seeing things. Perhaps the incredible darkness was causing spots to form before my eyes. But no, there was a light. White. Faint. I could see it now. The mouth of the tunnel? An exit? I started walking slowly forward, my eyes straining, focusing on the distant circle of illumination. It was hard to keep track of time in that total darkness, but I must have walked for about 5 minutes, keeping my eyes on the little white spot, which gradually became larger. I must be getting closer, I told myself. And that's when I thought I heard voices. They were faint, as if they were far away, or as if they were talking in whispers. Who could it be? But then it was so dark. There could have been an army present, and it would have been impossible to see them. But how did I get here? I slowly began to remember. We were cruising around in a car, contemplating heading for Niagara Falls and maybe going over the river to the States. I think there was 4 of us. Yeah, there was 4 of us. Madman Marty, who was driving. Jason, man of few words, riding shotgun. And me, in the back, with Natalie. I'm sure I was only there because of Natalie. But I don't remember what happened after that. I became aware of a faint sound in the distance and saw that the light appeared much closer. And then I felt the vibrations underfoot. No. I reached down and touched a steel rail to find it shimmering in my hand. Shimmering! The white light wasn't the mouth of the tunnel. It was the headlight of a locomotive. The light was getting bigger and brighter, and now I could definitely hear the sound of the approaching train. I had to get away or find someplace safe to hide. I stepped off the track and smacked into the tunnel wall. The walls seemed to come within a foot of the line of track, not really leaving me enough space for me to lie prone. I'd have to find a nook or recess in which to take shelter. They had to have some, right? For the protection of the maintenance workers? And then the train sounded its horn. The noise seemed to explode in the confined space, and I saw to my horror that the train, was now closer, much closer, and as it roared towards me, the light began to illuminate the tunnel walls, and they were totally smooth, no sign of any openings in which to hide. The white light seemed to hang in the darkness now, as if it was stationary, not moving. But all the time I knew it was roaring down on me. I was buffeted by an infernal wind, the roar of the approaching locomotive filling the narrow space, and then the horn blared again, so loud it almost knocked me off my feet. I realized the train would be upon me in seconds. I threw myself down in the narrow space between the wall and the tracks, pressing my face into the ground as the wind whipped around me, choking me with dust. At the last instant, I could bear it no longer, but turned and looked up. A huge, silvery white light loomed over me, enormous and blinding. Was I actually under the train? Was it going to run over me? And then... I came to and found myself in a tunnel. Natalie was there. "Where are we?" I asked, totally bewildered. "You know where we are, silly," she answered, laughing. "No, really." "We're in the Blue Ghost Tunnel, asshat," Marty shouted in his booming voice. "You ought to know. It was hard enough getting in here." Then it did all come back to me. We had been cruising around when Marty got the bright idea of doing a little urban exploring in the Blue Ghost Tunnel. The real name of the Blue Ghost Tunnel is the Meriton Tunnel, and it was built from Queenston limestone back in 1875 to allow trains to pass underneath the third version of the Welland Canal. 107 men died during construction of the 700-foot tunnel, including a 14-year-old Irish boy killed by a falling limestone boulder. On January 3rd, 1903, 2 trains collided in the tunnel, killing a pair of firemen. So the tunnel was considered to be badly haunted by all who had died there. It also apparently had a spectral blue ghost. A spectral blue ghost, hence the nickname. We had a heck of a time finding the place, which was off an abandoned road, slipping and sliding our way through a series of narrow paths until we reached the entrance, all of us covered in mud. The door-sized gateway to the interior of the tunnel was ajar, and so we creaked it open and entered. After listening to see if we could hear anyone else inside, but all we could hear was the steady drip of water. Marty had brought an industrial-sized flashlight, while the rest of us used the lights from our phones. We moved forward slowly, oppressed by the malodorous atmosphere. "Hello!" Marty roared, his loud voice echoing in the confined space and almost making me drop my phone. "Don't do that, man," I complained, which spurred Marty to add, "Any ghosties here?" "Ah, shit," I said. Marty turned and shined his big flashlight in my eyes. "What's the matter, bro? Scared?" I didn't answer him. Asshole. Then Natalie came over to me and said quietly, "Don't encourage him." And then she took my hand. She took my hand, and it was okay. I was surprised at the well-preserved condition of the track bed, seeing the tunnel had been last used in 1915. But the walls were covered in graffiti, testifying to many visitors, some of them, probably, scarier than any ghost, while the high ceiling appeared to have been reinforced against collapse. Against collapse. In other words, the tunnel was no place to hang around. We could hear water over the sound of our voices, a dripping cascade which grew increasingly louder until Jason the Sphinx finally turned and spoke, for the first time all night. "We can't get through. There's lots of water coming through the ceiling, and the place is flooded." "Where's all this water coming from?" Marty asked. "We may be under the old canal, and it's seeping in from there," I said. Marty was close enough to me I was able to see him shrug. And then his light went out, plunging us into darkness, but for the feeble lights from our phones. "Hey man, don't do that," I yelled. "I'm not. The fucking thing cut out on me," he yelled back. And in that instant, my phone died, and so did my light. Natalie grabbed me, crying, "My phone's dying." And then Jason's died too. And we were underground, in the dark, in a tunnel, and a long way from the entrance. We stumbled along in what we hoped was the right direction, away from the falling water. We had come at night, so, of course, there was no light at the end of the tunnel. But once again, Jason spoke. "I see a light." Down the other end of the tunnel, the far end, the wet end, opposite the direction in which we were walking, was a pinprick of white light. Was somebody else exploring the tunnel? From the other end? "Hello? Hello?" I yelled, only to hear my voice echoing back to me, followed by the blare of a railroad engine. A train was coming down the track. But that was impossible. No trains had run through the tunnel since 1915. But one was coming through now. The light was getting bigger and brighter, and we could hear it chugging along. We were all running now, Natalie holding my hand, but then I suddenly tripped and lost her, falling to the hard, wet ground. I turned and looked up. A huge, silvery white light loomed over me, enormous and blinding. Was I actually under the train? Was it going to run over me? And then... I was alone in darkness. I didn't know where I was or how I got there. Everything was black, but a blackness so deep and intense it felt almost physical. and I had to fight the urge to collapse, to fall upon the ground and curl myself into the fetal position and shut my eyes. Shut my eyes? Were my eyes even open? I reached up and touched them. Yeah, they were open. And no, I couldn't see my hand in front of my face. Then I reached down and touched the ground, and my hand felt stones, small rocks which had a greasy texture. I moved my hand a little farther and found I was now touching a long wooden board, wooden plank. And then it hit me. It was a railway tie. I was standing on a railroad track. And then I knew. I was dead and condemned to this tunnel, this underground world for ever? Was I the blue ghost haunting the Meriton Tunnel? Would I ever see Natalie again? Natalie? Did she really exist? To paraphrase the old country song, it's enough to make my ghost eyes blue. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring such cryptids as the Night Floaters, werewolves, and the Black-Eyed Children. So again, please consider subscribing. Please help me to reach my goal of 2,021 subs in 2021. Till midnight. Cheers! Pictures used in today's video, courtesy of Pix Here, PX Here. The music was Haunted by Screams by the wonderfully talented Mayu.